Welcome to my new episode of Kate's Food Fiesta. Today I'm making one of my favorite foods. I think I'm always making my favorite foods, but this is a dish. It's really versatile you can have for breakfast, lunch and dinner, honestly. So it's a frittata. So it's kind of like an omelette. It's an Italian omelette, I think is probably what most people might know it as. They're pretty commonplace these days, but I've been making them for years. What I love about a frittata is that you just need a few staples in your fridge and pantry, and you can pretty much whip it up with anything, but you can always use just like, leftover stuff, the things that you've, sort of used part of, and a frittata is just one of those things that you can chuck everything in and it'll just make this delicious throw together meal, which are usually the best. Here we have our ingredients for the frittata today that I'm going to make. We're making a bacon, potato and onion and red pepper frittata. They're just the things that I happen to have in my pantry. So we've got the bacon here, which is going to be chopped up. We're going to be pan frying that with the onions and the red capsicum. And then once that's all cooked up, we're going to be cutting up these potatoes. Now these potatoes have been pre-cooked, so they're maybe I boiled them for maybe 10 minutes just to have them a little bit cooked, because potatoes take a little bit longer to cook than everything else. Then we've got our eggs, which are going to be whipped up, and we're going to put all of that into a baking dish, topped with some Parmesan cheese, and then we're going to bake that for 40 minutes or so to make our delicious frittata. So now we're just going to pan fry up the vegetables and the bacon. So I'm just putting a little bit of olive oil in there. Depends on the sort of pan that you've got, if it's non-stick at all. So you'll notice, I'm just going to put my onions in there. So you notice I haven't cut it too fine. You want sort of reasonably chunky sort of vegetables and whatnot going in there. This is actually quite a big onion, a very oniony frittata, but that's okay because I love onions. And yeah, so we're just going to pop that in there. Sort of break them down. You don't want those little segments. You want them all to be spread through. You don't want just big mouthfuls of onion in your frittata, so we want to get that cooking. And then we're going to add in the bacon as well, and that's going to have to be sort of broken down as I stir it and cook it through. And we're just going to let that cook for a little bit before we add the red peppers, because the red peppers don't take quite so long to cook. Okay, so now you can see the bacon and onions kind of starting to brown up, and it's sizzling and popping like delicious bacon should. So now's the time I'm going to pop the red peppers in there. I don't have a lot of red pepper, like I said, it was just a little bit of an offcut that I had, so just add a little bit of colour and a bit of extra flavour to the frittata. We're just going to cook that up for a little bit longer, cook up that pepper, and yeah, then we're going to add the potatoes in here just to soak up all that bacon deliciousness, and then we're going to pop it in a tray to bake it. I'm just going to add the potatoes in. Now you see I've sort of chopped them into sort of large bite-sized chunks. You don't want them to be too small. You sort of want it to be that, mouthful of potato when you take a bite of that frittata. So I'm just popping all of this in here, and I'm going to spread it around. Like I said, I want that potato to sort of absorb some of the bacon flavours, the bacon and onion flavours in there. You're not really cooking it in here at all. You're just sort of coating the potatoes and in the flavours that are already in the pan. And as soon as we've done that, we don't stick them in there for too long. Mix that around. Turn that off. Turn the heat off there. And now we've got ourselves our casserole dish that we're going to be using. So we just want to place a little bit of oil in there just to make sure that it doesn't stick to the bottom. Some people like to use baking paper. I love baking paper sometimes, but for a frittata, I feel it sort of makes the eggs sweat a little bit in the dish. So I'm just using my hands to just grease this dish up a bit. literally going to take this pan and we're going to pour it in there. Delicious flavours. Now, one thing, important thing is you don't want to overfill the pan, so if I've done too much of this, well, I guess I'll just be eating some bacon and potato and onion on the side, but I think that's actually about right. So now I've cracked all my eggs into the bowl, so I'm going to give them a little whisk. You want it all to be blended. You don't obviously want any separation between your eggs and yolks, so the yolks and the whites. And it gets a bit of a creamier look to it when it's all blended. Now I've used 8 eggs in this because I think I'm going to need that little bit extra. I might even need to use a couple more to fill the pan up. But one of the things that I do, and I also do this when I make scrambled eggs, is I actually put, so a lot of the recipes ask for like cream or milk to go into the eggs, but I find that it actually makes the eggs sort of watery. So ironically, I'm putting water in them. So I use about a tablespoon per egg of water. It just sort of dilutes the egg a little bit, otherwise it's a bit too strong, like firm eggy, so it actually gives it a bit of a softer texture. So I'm just going to pop that in there as well. I've already measured it out for my 8 eggs. And then we just mix that in. So that's all mixed around. And then we just need to grab a little bit of salt and pepper. Again, you'll start to notice I put salt and pepper in almost all my recipes. I do love probably cracked pepper more than most, but I'll keep it a little bit light on since I'm not the only one eating this today. I'm feeding my camera woman. Hey, Cal. So just mix all that up, and literally we're just going to pour that in. I'm hoping that'll be enough egg. Look at that, perfect. Yum, yum, yum. So now, just going to pop a little bit of Parmesan cheese on it. Now, again, you can do it to taste. I personally like a fair bit of cheese on there, so I'm just going to pop a little bit of that on the top there. It gets that nice sort of cheesy crust on the top of the frittata as well once it's done. Okay, great. Okay, now we have this delicious frittata out of the oven. So we've baked for around 40 minutes. There's a little bit of a crust on the top of it from the cheese. And you can see it's just cooked and it smells so good, honestly. Okay, now I'm going to serve it. So I'm just going to cut around the edges just to sort of loosen it. Because I put that oil and greased that pan, it's actually coming away really easily. And I'm just going to cut into it now. I would generally, because I've made it with 8 eggs, I would generally cut this into about 4 to 6 pieces, I guess. Two eggs a serving, but you know, the good thing about a frittata is you can make it as big as you want. So I'm going to do a couple of smaller ones here as well. Just going to pop this out and show you what it looks like. It's going to come. So once you take it out of the oven, you don't want to serve it immediately. You really want to just let it sit for a little bit. It just needs a little bit of time to rest and settle, and it'll be really, really hot as well. So there is my frittata, which I am about to eat for my lunch, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. Thanks so much for joining me today. When I put the recipe in the link in the down where it goes, I'll probably put a few options and variations of things that you can do and try with your frittatas, just to, you know, give you some ideas. But if you give this recipe a try, it's pretty foolproof, I'd say. But yeah, I really hope you enjoy it, and thanks for coming.